The lone rancher stood at the edge of his sprawling land, his breath visible in the cold winter air. The vast plains stretched endlessly before him, blanketed in a thick layer of snow that sparkled under the pale morning sun. With no neighbors nearby, he felt the weight of solitude more deeply during this harsh season. The biting wind cut through his worn coat, reminding him of how tough life could be in these parts. Each day blended into the next as he tended to his cattle, often lost in thoughts that echoed back to a quieter time before he agreed to a cold marriage. He had lived alone for far too long, and while he often yearned for companionship, he feared stepping outside his comfort zone. Winter nights were especially long. Huddled by the flickering firelight of his modest cabin, the rancher thought about what lay ahead with his new bride. The letters had promised a blossoming partnership filled with hope. However, he remained skeptical about finding love from someone brought here not by choice, but by necessity. As he gazed across the snowy landscape, he recalled tales of adventure, wonder, and warmth shared amongst families and communities, things he missed dearly. Yet now, it was only silence that greeted him each day as he forged ahead alone on this solitary journey. He was ready to face another winter day, worried about survival, unaware that everything would soon change with the arrival of an unexpected warmth into his heart. The rancher often thought about how he arrived at this decision. The idea of a cold marriage had seemed practical at first. He wanted someone to share the burdens of ranch life, someone to help ease the weight of solitude that pressed down on him daily. The letters describing his bride painted a picture of hope, a young woman who could bring some light into his dark, lonely existence. Yet, as he contemplated the arrangement, doubts crept into his mind. Could a marriage built on necessity ever blossom into something more? He recalled his friends' laughter and joy, their wives beside them, creating warmth in their homes. He missed that connection. But he also feared the vulnerability that came with seeking love. The rancher's heart felt heavy with uncertainty. He had spent so long closed off, convinced that independence was strength. But now, with the arrival of his bride approaching, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was simply avoiding deeper emotions. He remembered the first time he had seen her photograph, a delicate frame around her youthful smile. She looked so full of life and promise, yet he knew she came from hardship. He hoped she would not feel trapped in this new life, as he often did. As days passed, he prepared for her arrival with a mix of anticipation and trepidation. Maybe this cold marriage would lead to unexpected warmth, or perhaps it would reinforce the walls he had built around his heart. Either way, he was ready to face whatever came next. On the other side of the world, the 18-year-old bride was filled with a mix of excitement and fear as she prepared for her journey to America. Raised in a small village in China, her family had faced countless struggles, often going without enough food to eat. They lived in a humble home with little more than the bare necessities. Her parents always dreamed of a better life for their daughter, one that would take her far from their poverty-stricken existence. When the opportunity for marriage to an American rancher arose, it seemed like a chance to escape her difficult situation. She imagined a new life filled with promise and adventure, picturing rolling plains and wide open skies. In her heart, she held on to dreams of love and happiness, even if the marriage was arranged and lacked romance. As she traveled across the ocean, she pictured herself stepping into a warm cabin by the fire, surrounded by laughter and companionship. Yet doubts nagged at her mind. Would this rancher accept her? Would he see her as more than just a means to fulfill his lonely life? When she arrived in America, everything felt overwhelming. The cold air bit at her skin, a sharp contrast to her homeland's gentle warmth. As she approached the ranch, anticipation mixed with anxiety gripped her heart. She hoped that somehow, together, they could build something beautiful out of their unusual arrangement. a bond that could transform a cold marriage into something more meaningful. As the bride stepped onto the ranch, a wave of mixed emotions washed over her. The vastness of the landscape was both breathtaking and intimidating. Snow-covered fields stretched out endlessly, and the stark beauty left her feeling small and overwhelmed. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart, but uncertainty gripped her mind. The cabin stood before her like a fortress, strong yet solitary. She imagined it would be warm and welcoming, but as she approached, doubts began to settle in. Would she fit into this life? Would the rancher see her as a partner or merely a burden? The weight of these questions felt heavy on her shoulders. Inside the cabin, she found only silence. The flickering light from the fireplace cast shadows on the walls, and she felt an ache of loneliness creeping in. Memories of her family flooded her thoughts. Moments of laughter and comfort shared back home seemed so far away now. Here, everything was unfamiliar, from the creaking floorboards to the rough texture of the furniture. She longed for reassurance that she belonged here. Would she ever feel at home in this place? The bride's heart fluttered with hope and fear as she silently vowed to make this new life work. Yet, every corner of the cabin reminded her of how different things were from what she had imagined. She stood at the threshold of change, feeling lost but determined to discover what lay ahead for both herself and her new husband. The first few days at the ranch were filled with an awkward silence between the bride and the rancher. They moved around each other like two strangers, unsure of how to bridge the gap that separated them. The rancher focused on his daily chores, tending to the cattle and repairing fences, while she tried to find her place within the unfamiliar surroundings. When they did speak, their conversations felt stilted and formal. "You'll need to help with the chores," he would say, his voice lacking warmth as he assigned tasks to her. She nodded, eager to contribute, but inside she felt a growing sense of isolation. Her attempts at small talk often fell flat. His responses were short and practical, devoid of curiosity or interest in her past. In the evenings, they shared meals in silence, the flickering candlelight casting shadows on their faces. She would glance at him, hoping for a sign of connection, but his gaze seemed distant and preoccupied. The rancher often looked out the window as if searching for something beyond the horizon, perhaps a reminder of his former life before marriage. As days turned into nights, she couldn't shake off the feeling that they were merely two people living under one roof, rather than partners in any true sense. The more she tried to reach out, the more he retreated into his own world of solitude. Frustration bubbled within her. She longed for understanding, yet found herself feeling more lost than ever in this strange new life, where love was absent and connection felt like a distant dream. One quiet morning, the air was crisp and still as the sun began to rise over the horizon, casting a soft, golden light across the snow-covered landscape. The rancher stepped outside, feeling the chill on his face, and paused to take in the beauty around him. For a moment, he felt a sense of peace that he had not experienced in a long time. Inside the cabin, the bride was preparing breakfast, her movements gentle and deliberate. She set the table with care, hoping that today might be different. As she cracked an egg into the frying pan, the warm sizzle filled the silence. She paused to listen to the sounds of nature awakening outside, wishing for a sign that things would change between them. When the rancher entered for breakfast, he was greeted by the comforting smell of food. For the first time, he noticed how diligently she had worked to create a welcoming atmosphere. As they sat down together, he looked at her and saw not just a bride, but a young woman who had left everything behind for a new life. In that moment, something shifted within him. He realized that their cold marriage had the potential for warmth, if only they opened up to each other. She caught his gaze, and instead of looking away, she held it. Both feeling an unspoken connection begin to form. As they shared their meal in quiet companionship, the walls around their hearts started to crack, paving the way for new feelings to blossom in the stillness of that winter morning. As the days turned into weeks, the rancher began to notice the bride's unwavering strength and resilience. They worked side by side, tackling the challenges of ranch life together. Each morning, they would bundle up against the winter chill and head outside to care for the animals. While he moved with a practiced ease born from years of experience, she adapted quickly, learning and asking questions with a determination that impressed him. One afternoon, as they cleared hay for the cattle, he watched her efforts with a new appreciation. She bent to lift a heavy bale without hesitation, her face set in concentration. "Let me help you," he offered, instinctively rushing over. She looked up, her cheeks flushed from the cold and exertion. "I can manage," she replied with a small smile that held a hint of pride. Her confidence sparked something within him, a flicker of admiration that was beginning to grow. He realized she was not just a girl who had arrived in search of a new life. She was a hard-working partner capable of great things. In quiet moments spent repairing fences or gathering firewood, he learned about her past, her family's struggles, her dreams for the future, and how she had fought through difficulties to get where she was now. With each story shared, his respect for her deepened. No longer did he see her merely as someone brought into his life out of necessity. Instead, he began to understand that she possessed an inner strength, one that complemented his own, and together they could build something resilient and lasting amidst the harsh realities of their world. As the days passed, small moments of kindness began to weave a connection between the rancher and his bride. One chilly afternoon he noticed her shivering while stacking firewood outside. Without thinking, he removed his heavy coat and draped it around her shoulders. "You'll need this more than I do," he said with a gentle smile, and she looked up, surprised. That simple gesture warmed her heart and made her feel seen. Later that week, the bride set aside some spare apples she had saved from their meager supplies and surprised him with a warm pie. When he took the first bite, his eyes lit up. "This is delicious," he exclaimed, savoring the sweet flavor. In that moment, she saw his genuine delight and couldn't help but beam with pride. They started sharing more small exchanges, a knowing glance when they were working side by side, or a shared laugh over a clumsy mistake made while tending to the animals. Each incident chipped away at the walls they had built around themselves. He would offer his assistance when she struggled with heavy chores, while she'd do little things like freshen up his coffee or mend parts of his clothing that needed care. One evening, as they settled by the fireplace after dinner, he reached for her hand unconsciously as they both admired the dancing flames. It was a small gesture, but filled with meaning. It spoke volumes about how their relationship was evolving into something warmer and deeper. In these quiet moments of kindness, they slowly began to realize that love might not be far behind if they continued to nurture their growing bond. One bitterly cold morning, as snow fell heavily outside, the rancher and his bride faced a new challenge. The livestock needed feeding, but the blizzard had made it nearly impossible to navigate through the deep drifts. The rancher's patience wore thin as he struggled against the howling wind, feeling the weight of their responsibilities pressing down on him. "Stay inside, it's too dangerous," he instructed her, his voice strained with concern. But she refused to be sidelined. "I can help," she insisted, determination shining in her eyes. Though he admired her spirit, he worried about her safety. Together, they bundled up and ventured out into the storm. The wind whipped around them like an angry beast, making each step a battle against nature. She stumbled once in the snow, but before he could react, she pushed herself back up and continued forward with resolve. Watching her struggle yet persist ignited something within him, a mixture of pride and worry. As they worked together to feed the animals, the harsh weather seemed to mirror their earlier struggles, the barriers built by uncertainty slowly melting away under the pressure of adversity. However, Tension bubbled beneath the surface as they exchanged sharp words during moments of frustration. "Why do you insist on doing everything alone?" he snapped, feeling overwhelmed. "I am not weak," she shot back, her voice firm despite the biting cold. In that moment of conflict, they both realized that external challenges were testing not only their physical endurance, but also their emotional connection. Through this strife, they began to understand that cooperation and communication were essential for overcoming not just the storm, but any obstacle life threw at them together. One evening, as the snow continued to fall heavily outside, the rancher and his bride gathered firewood for the dwindling fire. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the barn. The rancher's heart dropped. It could only be trouble. "Stay here," he instructed her firmly, but she insisted. "I'm coming with you." They rushed outside together, and as they neared the barn, they discovered that part of the roof had collapsed under the weight of the snow. Panic filled the rancher's mind as he realized that a few cattle were trapped inside. Without hesitation, he pushed his way into the barn, fighting against falling debris, while his bride followed closely behind. "Be careful," she shouted, concern etched on her face. As they worked to free the cattle, a heavy beam shifted dangerously above them. Without thinking twice, he pushed her to safety just as the beam crashed down where she had stood moments before. "You saved me," she gasped, eyes wide with shock and gratitude. "I couldn't let anything happen to you," he replied breathlessly, feeling a rush of emotions surge through him. In that instant of bravery, something shifted between them. They shared a moment of silent understanding that transcended words, each recognizing that their lives were now intertwined in ways they had not fully acknowledged before. Once the animals were safe and the immediate danger past, they stood close together in the glow of lantern light. The fear and adrenaline slowly faded away as their hearts synchronized in a new rhythm of trust and partnership. It was a pivotal moment that deepened their emotional connection and solidified their bond as they faced whatever challenges lay ahead together. In the weeks that followed their harrowing experience in the barn, the rancher and his bride found themselves navigating a new rhythm of life together. Their relationship had transformed from one of cold formality into a warm partnership filled with understanding. The once awkward silences were replaced with laughter and shared stories as they worked side by side. One evening, while preparing dinner together, the bride playfully bumped his shoulder with hers. "You have to help me chop these vegetables better," she teased, her eyes sparkling with mischief. He chuckled, realizing how far they had come from their initial interactions. Her lightheartedness brought a smile to his face, and he responded with mock seriousness. "I'm a rancher, not a chef." As they sat down to eat, he took a moment to look at her, truly look at her, and saw not just his wife, but a partner who had become integral to his life. Days spent working together had revealed her resourcefulness and grit, qualities he admired deeply. It wasn't just the challenges they faced that forged their bond. It was also the small, daily acts of care and support. She would always make sure there was fresh coffee waiting for him after long nights outdoors, while he would surprise her with little gifts like wildflowers he picked during his rounds. In those moments of connection, both began to feel a sense of belonging that surpassed what they initially thought possible in their cold marriage. Love bloomed quietly between them, a gentle warmth that formed from shared experiences and mutual respect, revealing that what started as necessity could grow into something beautiful and profound. As the winter months slowly transitioned to spring, the rancher and his bride stood on the porch of their cabin, gazing out at the melting snow and budding trees. The sun shone brightly, casting a warm glow over the landscape, and for the first time they felt a sense of hope for what lay ahead. "I never thought I would enjoy this place as much as I do now," she said, leaning against him and taking in the beauty around them. He smiled down at her, feeling a warmth in his heart that was once foreign to him. "Together, we've made it through a tough winter," he replied, looking into her eyes. "I think we can face anything that comes our way." With their bonds solidified through shared experiences and mutual respect, they felt ready to tackle new challenges. Plans for planting a garden and improving the ranch flowed easily between them as they discussed their dreams for the future. Each idea exchanged felt like another thread weaving their lives together. The bride reached for his hand, intertwining their fingers. "What if we make this place our home?" she asked softly, her voice filled with excitement and possibility. He squeezed her hand gently. "It already is home," he replied sincerely. "You're my partner in all of this." As they stood there, surrounded by nature's awakening beauty, they knew that their journey together was just beginning. With hearts full of hope and eyes fixed on the horizon, they were ready to face whatever came next, together as true partners in life and love.